What does the power of creation mean to you? And what does it look like? Well, creation is always a process, but never drawing something out of thin air. There are many different philosophers and thinkers who have touched on the nature of creation, which is something we can use to guide ourselves in self growth and in our creative development. Knowing why this is true will bring a better understanding. Parmenides said, "What is, and what is not, cannot be." He was the first to clarify that nothing in the physical world can come into being out of nothing. The philosopher Lucretius argued that if things came from nothing, anything could spring from anything with no need for a seed or a cause. But of course, nature shows regularity and order. So, creation must be the rearrangement of pre existing matter on a micro and macro level. Before Antoine Lavoisier, chemistry was a bit of a guessing game. Chemists assumed that matter was losing weight when a log burned and turned into ash. They assumed that the smoke was matter escaping into the void. Lavoisier started conducting chemical reactions inside closed vessels, and that way, nothing from the reaction could escape the closed container. Through this experiment, he was able to discover that the total weight from the reaction stayed exactly the same, no matter the physical change that stemmed from it. In this case, matter had not gone away, but just transformed itself into something entirely different. This birthed the shorthand version of Lavoisier's law: nothing is lost, nothing is created, everything is transformed. Then, in the 19th century, the first law of thermodynamics stated that energy is the invincible force driving these changes. You can't create energy from nothing. Energy can only change forms. Why is this important? Because this proves that as you yourself are capable of physical, mental, and spiritual metamorphosis, you don't have to look for anything outside of yourself to grow. Everything we need is within us already, and we just have to take control of the process of creation itself. Applied equally to scientific discovery, humor, and art in its many forms, creativity is the synthesis of raw material into new ideas. It has been described as the defeat of habit through originality, meaning that creativity requires risk, imagination, and a divergent way of thinking. This takes you out of your normal habits and structure. You can't go along with the herd if you want to be unique and memorable. Metamorphosis, which creates something from your current state of being, requires a shift change first. Creativity is an inner process of change and synthesis that is carried out into the world like a ripple effect. I want you to think about the adjacent possible, which states that a system in its current state can only reach a certain level of change from where it's at. Where you are defines how much change you can experience in a leap, because what we've done recently dictates our abilities to manifest something emergent. The key word is emergent, motion. Think about how people, science, math, language, culture, society, industries, and technology advance. One door opens, we walk through it, and we take whatever we discover as the key to unlock the next door that wasn't in view until we walked through the previous one. The current peak becomes the vantage point we need to see the next one. This is why being in motion is important, because being in motion leads you to new territory, and new territory continues to expand. It only stops when you stop. Imagination is one thing, but we know for sure, like a map you've never traveled, if you stay in the process of discovery, you'll keep finding new land. This applies to your own growth and achievement. The interesting part is that the land has always been there to explore, but it is unknown to your mind until you do the work to arrive there and see it. The breakthrough is already sitting there, waiting to be discovered. This is why new discoveries, which is a form of creation, are often made by multiple people around the exact same time. If breakthroughs are really just recombinations of the parts currently available in the latent space of possibility, then the same breakthrough should often occur to multiple people at almost the exact same time, independently, without any contact between them. We've seen this throughout history. Calculus was invented separately by Newton and Leibniz at roughly the same time. The theory of evolution arrived both in the minds of Darwin and Wallace. Inventions and discoveries like the telephone or oxygen were made by different people in the same narrow window of time. The adjacent possible has just expanded to make it reachable to everyone standing at that frontier. But previous discoveries made the idea ripe. This applies not only to discoveries and inventions, it also applies to human growth and potential. This is why you should never count yourself out or tell yourself you cannot achieve something. Because the fact of the matter is that if one person can achieve greatness and reach their goals, so can you. If it's been done before, it can be done again. The imagination leads to physical changes in reality, and physical changes in reality show us what's possible. And the boundary for what is truly possible continues to grow the more we put our imagination into practice. That's the game. The universe and you alike are limitless. But you have to believe it first. And the core idea is that you cannot skip steps. You have to be in the process to achieve what you want. It takes millions of years for the universe to create a star. So, disregarding the work it requires to become one yourself is foolish and will not work. Do the work and shine brighter over time. The boundary of what you can create is real at any given instant, and it also is constantly and relentlessly expanding. Push forward by stepping into the new paradigm. And where does all of this start? In the mind. One of the earliest philosophical explanations of the mind being a creative tool are found in the Kabbalion, which is not a completely accurate representation of Hermeticism, but of the New Thought movement. The principle of mentalism, stating that the all is mind, is a way to say that the mind is generative. Physical manifestations are created first in the mind. Creation is born in the brain first. As above, so below is a phrase that describes recursion, and it's a gift. The same patterns play out on micro and macro levels. Atoms turn into molecules, molecules turn into life, life turns into minds, and minds into ideas. This is the physical world rearranging itself to create something novel. It's like taking the next step on a ladder. The interesting thing about this information is not necessarily what it says, because many have heard it before. But the thing most people do not tell you about is that the source of this information was presented as something it was not in order to work on the belief systems of the people who read it. The author had ideas about mind and reality in 1908 and decided to fabricate the fact that the information was over 2,000 years old and came from a legendary ancient sage named Hermes Trismegistus. William Walker Atkinson, the author, gave his ideas the cloth of ancient authority because he knew that people would trust the information more if it seemed to come from a timeless source. What does that tell you? People often believe what they want to believe, which is, in fact, a reason to pay attention to the power of belief itself. It controls what seems to be right or wrong and what seems credible or not. This shapes reality through an individual lens, which does influence others. Ideas are often judged based on what they give back to us. If they are useful, they are kept. And ideas can be useful in many ways. sometimes to tell the truth, and sometimes to prop up egos. This is good nor bad, depending on how you use it. Belief can be channeled even if it is delusional, and that delusion isn't always the negative kind. Sometimes that delusion gets you to the finish line. However, we want to label our belief in our inner world. It does have an impact on what forms on the outside. Ancient philosopher Plotinus insisted that reality emanates from the one or the source. Reality comes from the source because the source is overflowing. It's in a state of abundance. He considered the source ineffable and the point from which everything is created. Plotinus asked himself, how does a world come out of this source? And he concluded that the source does not build reality into what it is, despite it being the source. It does not decide to make reality into what it is, despite it being the source. It does not craft, design, or labor for anything to be set into reality, despite it being the source. Reality overflows out of the source the way light pours out from the sun. The sun does not choose to shine, it just does. It is so full of its inner contents that radiance simply is the byproduct of its nature. Plotinus called this emanation, which is a word for abundance. Does a flame go out just because it lights a candle? The flame can light 1,000 candles and still burn bright. Technically, the flame has journeyed out, spreading its influence across an expanse of candles, but its true source of influence is that single original flame. The flame doesn't have to look outside of itself to access its core power. This is why people say that self growth is a sort of coming back to oneself, because you are not finding anything outside of yourself to improve or to expand. You are simply remembering who you are and who you wanted to be from the beginning. You are drawing from within your own well. Man is made in the image of God, meaning God isn't some abstract feeling or a way of life that is outside of you. God is within you already. The source of light is already there. If the journey you take makes you go on a detour, then can we call it a detour? Plotinus believed that the source is not far away in space or time, but is inward. The universe is a field of latent possibility, a place where forms are created and expressed in a wide expanse of space. The overflow is the latent possibility. The human brain has about 86 million neurons and over 100 trillion synaptic connections, meaning the brain can have a nearly infinite amount of states that far outnumbers the amount of atoms in the observable universe. Overflow, or limitless possibility, is observed in the tool you are using right now to listen. We don't have to beg for the manifestation of our potential, it is already there. You have to bring your mind into a state where it can access that possibility, turning it into actuality, which brings us to Stoicism. Epictetus was a man born into slavery. He was owned, sold, beaten, and broken at the whim of another man. And he built a revered philosophy in spite of his situation. His body could be treated as dirt, his body could be controlled, but the one thing they could not take from him was his mind. He says some things are up to us and some things are not. There is nuance here, and it is important because self growth can feel and seem magical. Many in the self improvement space will frame things in a mystical manner. They also want you to believe in magic sometimes, but we have to stay grounded in what we know the universe to be like. The universe is limitless. That is correct. There is order in the universe. Yes. But the universe has checks and balances. And within that order, there is chaos. Chaos became its own science and upended what we knew about the natural world in the late 1900s. And it colors what we know about complexity. Epictetus knew about chaos intuitively. He draws a line down the middle. We have things that we can control and things that we cannot. We can control our opinions, judgments, motivations, our path of pursuit, what we avoid, and our will. We can control our opinions, judgments, motivations, our path of pursuit, what we avoid, and our will. We cannot control our bodies, which can get sick or hurt at virtually any moment. We don't control our property because nothing in the universe is actually owned by subjects of the universe, which we are. Property can and will always be taken in your waking life or eventually when you die. We cannot control our reputations because the thoughts of others are autonomous. We cannot control our position or office because it's granted and can be revoked by others. So the judgments and choices we make are our own. That's what we've been bestowed, and don't think we are without immense power. Most people name the dichotomy of control as this guiding light toward a positive life. But our lives are not dictated by dualities, as much as it may seem. The reason why we should detach ourselves from outcomes is because we don't really have full control over them. Your inner life isn't some magical lever that creates your reality directly, but it can indirectly. Action and responsibility have influence, which is the nuance to take with you. When people say the world is gray, they mean that every situation and every event has multiple inputs. A successful athlete is not only talented, they also maintain great health, sufficient nutrition, family support, quality coaching, and a surrounding environment conducive to success. It's not just that the athlete is strong, competitive, and talented, they need support along the way. This is an example of the true interconnected nature of reality because nothing moves strictly on its own. There are always many forces at play. Don't think you don't have influence over your health, your career, your relationships, and even the outcome of your hard work. But just know you don't have full control, and that's okay. Most of life is lived in the messy middle. This is why wishing for a final outcome can be foolish, because if you seek to enjoy your life, you have to love to be in the process. A peak just gives you more space to search for the next one. Everything is a process, and if the process is not always guaranteed to lead somewhere, you have nothing to lose for trying anyway, because you own nothing but your inputs. Our duty as a human being is to try, and the outcome we desire may come to us by virtue of our work. And it often does with consistency. The universe is arranged and ordered in a certain manner, and our duty is to influence outcomes with our minds. Every living thing has a duty assigned to them from creation, and that is ours. Mastery of oneself is the foundation of all mastery. Every effect on the world has to come from within. Remember, we talked about overflow? That only happens from within. The source is mastery and control of the mind. The place where you have total agency is also the place everything else grows from. This is Mind Odyssey. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the things that you learned today. We are diving into more deeper research on self improvement topics, going through reading different philosophers, and sifting through the pantheon of information at our disposal to create new ideas and new discoveries for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Share it with someone that you love or with someone that you feel like could benefit from this type of content. We will be back soon with another video, but until then, mull this one over.